all, congratulations on this project. It seems like it's a
Thank
lot
you.
of fun. Uh,
It,
Give me a little rundown on how this project came to be.
the Great Grass Race was created by a man named Denis Oliver, and he's just a big kid at heart, and he has all these crazy ideas, and he wants to see them on television, and so he created a platform called Menace Vision, where he can put this and people can watch it for free. There's the apps and there's the website and there's Facebook. It's all free and available to people. So that's kind of where it all started, was him. And then, he was partially inspired by a movie called The Straight Story by David Lynch, about a man who drives a tractor to go see his sick brother.
Hmm.
But it's only like 300 miles, and I think that's the twist that Denny adds to everything, is he likes to just take things to extremes. And so he said, well, what if we have them drive all the way across the country? What if we have them go from Los Angeles to New York on these lawnmowers? And that was really where it started. And then it was just a matter of figuring out, how to get everybody across the country safe. And obviously when COVID happened, it changed a lot of the planning that went into it, and it made some of the logistics even more complicated. But, we were committed to making it and knew that we could still make it happen. It was just going to look different than we thought. And so, here we are.
One of the most interesting things, I have lived in a place where people are very proud of their lawnmowers, especially their riding lawnmowers, is the fact that these guys are taking a long distance. Was there ever issue with the contestants being, I guess, very afraid to push their mowers to another limit?
Yes and no. So, we had a couple of accidents
Oh.
actually where, the lawnmower wouldn't stop
Hmm.
because, the brakes on these lawnmowers are like as big as a chiclet, they're like as big as like a small piece of gum. And we have this big old lawnmower pulling a trailer with, a bunch of food and water that people have donated in it.
Hmm.
And then they're going down a hill, and it was just all this weight just pushing, and like the lawnmower wouldn't stop, and they blew through traffic lights and all that stuff. And so there were a couple times when people were afraid of that. But the reality is a lot of the contestants wanted to modify their lawnmowers to make them go faster, because it's a race. And so they want to win, and so they're always trying to figure out the little angle, and in the South, they actually do lawnmower racing. When we were in Oklahoma, we were hosted by the OK Mowers group, and they took us out on their lawnmowers, and they have lawnmowers that go 80 miles an hour. So it was pretty crazy kind of seeing the difference.
Um, so having those types of unexpected occurrences, like not running through stop signs, was there any concern with like how to get funding, how to continue doing this in a safer manner?
For sure. There was never really concern about a safer manner,
Hmm.
because, you know, I was really clear on what was safe and what wasn't. And I let contestants know, on a regular basis, please don't do this. This isn't safe. One of my jokes was kind of like, but they're like children. You tell a
Hmm.
child not to touch a hot stove, and they don't learn until they burn their hands. And then they're like, oh, wait a minute, that's what he means by hot.
Yeah.
So there were a couple times when we said, you know, don't put your lawnmower in neutral, because that'll be bad. And then people would still put it in neutral and it would end up being bad. But for the most part, whenever there was something that was truly dangerous, we would tow them through that area to keep them safe, or we would just avoid it altogether. Anytime we did anything that I thought might be unsafe, I would always scout it out first
Hmm.
and just kind of make an evaluation as to whether or not we could make it through it. And, we had one injury. We had one person who broke a wrist, but it was it was kind of his own doing.
Hmm.
It wasn't really, related to how we were doing our things. But other than that, everybody made it through safe and sound. So we're happy.
Awesome. Having to modify a mower, how much was that was allowed, and how much did you have to like kind of limit them to what you guys can do?
We put no rules on it.
Oh.
They were allowed to do whatever they wanted. However, we also let them know that they were responsible
Hmm.
for whatever happened if they were to do this. So, for instance, the guy that broke his wrist, he broke his wrist because he had modified his mower and it was more powerful than he thought it was going to be, and he basically fell off of it. the bigger thing, and one of the more interesting things, is the day after they modified their lawnmower, a lot of people kept breaking down. Like every 5 minutes they would break down. And so now their lawnmower went faster, but they had to spend more time on maintenance. Whereas before their lawnmower went slower, but it was more reliable. So it was an interesting dichotomy between the two ways of thought.
What were some of the incentives for people to help these contenders? I mean, were they able to like talk to people and be like, "Can you please donate this?" Or was it more of a, as it comes up, you would need to deal with it type situation for?
No, they had to talk to everyone, and there were no incentives for the communities to help us other than wanting to help human beings in need. And that was a large part of what the show was about. Was, we wanted to show that community does exist and that people do still care about each other and that people will just help someone to help them. This entire journey, they had no money, no water, no food, no place to stay. They weren't allowed to accept money. People wanted to give us money all the time, and they had to say no. They really were just dependent on human kindness, on people taking the time to take time out of their day to help us, or, and we had so many people do it. They would pull up and say, "Hey, what do you need?" And then they would go to the store and buy it and bring it to us. So it was really beautiful. But that was part of it, was the contestants had to learn to talk to strangers. They had to kind of come out of their comfort zone and, get used to interacting with people.
That's incredible. For you going in, what did you expect from this project?
A vacation. Honestly, no. When I was hired for the show, I wasn't originally hired as the director. I was just hired as a cameraman. And so when I was hired, I was told, yeah, basically you just drive across the country in an RV and you film people and you need to make sure you get a little bit of footage for every day. And that's it. And so I thought I was going to have all this time. I was going to read some books and I was going to, relax and take photos and all this stuff. When I became the director, that all changed and I became very busy all of a sudden. And so it then became, I didn't know what to expect. All I knew was that every day would be drastically different, that there'd be new challenges coming at us from weather or, local law enforcement or, mechanical issues. Like every day was something.
So now that you've gone through this and it's headed towards the finish line, how excited are you for people to be watching this?
I'm really, really proud of what we've made. It's, sometimes you make a show and you're not really sure what you're going to get. And we've just had such beautiful moments. And, with all of the stress, and I mean, it feels like a really divisive time in our country right now. And to know that we're putting something together that people can watch and see people coming together and see people being generous and kind and see law enforcement being generous and kind and helpful, like seeing them in a positive light and knowing that we made this as documentarians. I mean? We didn't create any of it. We didn't set any of it up. None of it's scripted. Just to have it naturally unfold on camera in front of people, I think is going to be amazing. Because when they go to the website to watch it, when they go to the app to watch it, they just get to see like beauty that exists that not everyone's talking about.
Having started off as a camera person and then getting into director's seat, how do you kind of like switch mindsets into being the director?
Well, I'm very lucky in the sense that I actually didn't have to switch mindsets, because as the camera person, I was filming from the perspective of, if I were directing, what footage would I want? What coverage would I need? What would I need? And so I think the biggest thing that came out of it was, when I did become the director, it was communicating to all the other cameramen what I was going to need and how they could best serve the show. And, communicating with the contestants, letting them know where we're going and what we're doing. Because it just taking the confusion and uncertainty out of what we were doing as much as we could, made it safer for everybody. It made it feel like more of a family. It really helped a lot of things. So that was kind of the biggest change.
And what kind of obstacles did the pandemic cause you guys? Honestly,
I have to say none. we were very respectful of the communities that we were in. And we matched their PPE protocol. We matched, their mask rules, and we always had our masks with us and whatnot. I think at the beginning, before the show started, there was an expectation that maybe people would open up their homes and we would like stay in their houses and stuff. And then after the pandemic, we were like, oh no, where are people going to be able to stay? Mm-hmm. But what we had instead was people who owned Airbnbs, that their house was available, let us have it for free. Or hotels were like, you know what, we can donate a room, no problem. And so it causes, I think with everything in life, like certain doors closed, but there were so many others that opened up. There were so many things that became possible because of the pandemic that it didn't negatively affect us at all.
So the camaraderie with the community and the contestants happened, but how about the camaraderie between contestants? Were they very, how do I put this? Were they very competitive against each other, or did they come together as well?
They were very competitive, but in the beginning, they all came together, which was actually a surprise. We thought the competition would start immediately and everybody would just go in a different direction. And instead, they chose to stay together and travel as a group because they realized that when they were together, they could get more help and they could get help for everyone. Mm-hmm. And, there were actually kind of two factions that ended up rising up out of this, where we had, the pink and the neon and the red team really stuck together. And the blue and the green team kind of did their own thing, for a while. But, when it really came down to it, all five teams would work together and all five teams would, do what they needed to do to get food for everyone or get fuel for everyone. Or, if someone had a hotel room, they'd say, hey, I got a room. Everyone can come stay here. And they would all sort of stay together and try to work together. In these last 2 weeks of this race, though, the competitive teeth definitely came out, and it's like all bets were off. There were people who thought they were going to travel together and had kind of made arrangements to travel together. And then the next morning they woke up and the other people were gone because they were like, no, we're out of here. We've got to get there as fast as possible. So I think it was beautiful because we got a lot of both.
That is
at the
awesome.
Beginning of the show, none of these people knew each other. We took complete strangers and paired them together, and at the end of this show, some of them are like family. And they'll be in each other's lives for forever. And it's really beautiful to see.
That is incredible. Why choose Tampa, Florida as the end point?
So originally, as people know, we were going to be going to New York. And I decided, a while ago, I noticed a few things. So one was from the contestant side. Mm-hmm. I noticed that they would call ahead. And they would have all these people standing on the side of the road, like ready to help them. They would have all these resources ready. And it made their journey really easy. And I felt like it was starting to make the show maybe potentially less interesting. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to put a twist. And so by not telling them that we were going to change the destination, they had made all these plans and all these hookups and all these tows and all these networking to get to New York. And at the last minute, none of it was going to matter anymore. They'd stayed up for days planning a route and figuring out which roads to take and how to avoid the freeways and how much gas they would need. And now they had to recalculate everything and start all over. And, that episode, it's called the Mississippi Split. The face on, the reactions on their faces was priceless. It was worth all the planning that it took to switch places. The second part is, we wanted to make sure that, like I said, we were very respectful of the communities that we went to. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to make sure that we were welcome and wanted in the communities that we were coming to. And, New York is a very big city and they've been hit very hard by the pandemic. And the idea of this traveling road show coming in, there were a lot of people that weren't necessarily comfortable with it. And even though, we've been doing our protocols and we've been doing our testing and we're all, symptom free and whatnot, it's hard to know what the quarantine rules that different people have. And we talked to, the city and the film commission and Tampa would just accepted us with open arms and they were excited to have us. They thought it would be a wonderful thing to have us come here. And so we were happy to come here.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I can't wait to see the finale of this. I want to see them cross the finish line and see who gets there first.
Yep. It's going to be exciting. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.